Hey guys, welcome back. It's Dave. This video here, I have a few different goals in mind, putting it together for some different purposes. Purpose number one is to really kind of familiarize you a little bit more with the grid and analyzing the grid. And the other purpose is to just do a quick race and just show you the ease of this model. Okay, once you have the data that you need, that you know what you're looking at, and you have those mental math skills, which isn't much, down pat, how quickly you can actually do a race. And I'm going to come at you later tonight with another video of the entire Tampa Bay card for tomorrow, 12/27. But what I wanted to do is, being that I finished one race, I wanted to take a look quickly at this grid. And this grid is complete with the double sections. I mentioned in my other videos, I've been using the combination of the matrix system factors, not all of them. I've been leaving out the final fraction because we deal with final fractions over here in the pace progression grid, and I've been leaving out the BRIZ average, BRIZ cumulative as well, and just going basically on the matrix system factors alone, and then combining them with the pace progression factors as well, and coming up with 4 different assessments here. An assessment based off the matrix factors only, 2 assessments based off of the pace progression model, and then finally an overall assessment averaging both of these out. Okay, and here's what we're going to take a look at. We're going to take a look at analyzing the grid once you're done. So once I have all my data in, and again, I'm not going to go into how I'm coming up with this data. That's what the tutorial's for. That's what the tutorial delivers all that information to you. How to convert times to ratings and selecting pace lines and everything of that nature. But what I don't want you to do is get confused as far as when it comes time to analyze it, how you should actually itemize your selections. And it's not always based off highest number to lowest number, depending on which area you're looking at. So let's look at the matrix area. After I identified like my target horse, and for those that aren't familiar with this terminology, if you own the matrix system or thorough capping deluxe tutorial, which I provided the matrix system along with, you should be familiar with this terminology: target, ability, target BRIZ, and so forth. If you're not, as I mentioned before, you can always go down in the description of the videos. There's a download link if you want to download pace progression. If you download the pace progression, I will automatically send you a free copy of the matrix system factors too, so that if you want to combine these grids together as well, you can do so. Okay, I will be putting this combination grid in the pace progression download. For those of you that have pace progression, you can go and you can re-download the grid page, and you'll now see a section that's titled pace progression with matrix, if you want to combine the two. I've been sticking with this method here, the combination, because I've been very profitable with it. Pretty much every time I played now with both of these, the combination, I've been profitable. Now what I want to show you is how am I coming up with my overall selections based off of all this data here. Well, first off, as I started, after I identify my top plays here, not plays, but my top point getters in each of these columns, I go and I identify top by blue, second by yellow, and these are just my preference, third by green, and if there's a close fourth, which there is here, I'll go orange. If there's not a close fourth, I'll just leave it at 3. Okay, and then I'll do the same for every other column. If you notice, I have an 87, 85, 85. The next is 7 points lower, so I'm not going to go identify the 78. I'm going to leave it as is. Now we're dealing with ratings, so what I'm doing is I convert it. The formula converts this target BRIZ number to a rating, and I have the top, second, third, and I didn't go to a fourth there with the 5. And then what happens here is this section is just automatically averaging all this out, and I have my top 4. Now, how am I coming up with my top 4 here? Sometimes it'll come straight off the ratings here. 2, 6, 4, 1. Just like it shows here. Top rating, second top, third, fourth. But that's not what I'm looking at. What I'm doing is I'm looking at this picture over here and I'm saying, okay, who's my target horse? And is he showing up elsewhere? Well, he is showing up as top target, second ability, and top target bridge rating. So I made him my number 1. I have my 6 horse as my ability horse, also showing up in the target and the target bridge. Made him my number 2. And then number 3 was, and 4 were the other horses that were kind of showing up. Now, I could have went with the 7 here as the 4th because he is actually showing up as the second target bridge. But I let the rating be my separator in the end there. When I have 2 horses that show up one time, I'll let the rating separate the 2, and that's where I came up with the 2-6-4-1. Now we move over to the pace progression model, and the first thing I want you guys to understand is these different ratings, the 1C rating, the 2C rating, and the final rating, are not the same as if you're using the Brohammer, the velocity grid that you find in the thorough capping. This is not feet per second or anything. This is a ongoing rating that changes throughout the race. It starts here and it changes based off of performance as the race goes on. So here's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the first call, which in a 6 furlong race such as this one, we're looking at the quarter. Okay, so we have 2 horses based off the pace lines that we chose from the past performances that are showing a 97 in first quarter performance, okay, or first call performance. Now, again, we're at mercy of the pace line that we choose when we're handicapping, okay? But we have to also take a look at the fact that there may have been, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'm gonna put that on a back burner for a second. And right now, each of these horses have their ratings based off of the first call. Okay? Now, what we do is when we add more data to the race, this rating here is going to change. Okay? This is not a brand new rating, separate, I should say, a separate rating. This is this rating here as it's influenced by the performance on the turn here, which is the second call. Okay, so if you notice, the 2 and the 6 were the top performers at first call out of the pace lines, the races that we chose for pace lines. Now you notice there's a little bit of influence going on here, a lot of influence going on with all of these runners based off of their performance on the second call, and now we have a new rating. This horse here is now 2 lengths, if you want to call it, slower, but yet could possibly potentially still be on the lead. And there's certain factors that determine that. Factor number 1, as I mentioned, did we use a reliable pace line to analyze each of these runners? And 2, was this runner last time out running against weaker company? Maybe he was the lone leader. There wasn't a lot of early speed in the race. So those are things you want to take a look at on the side once you're done your grid. Maybe class drop. You know, don't leave those qualitative factors out. But all I'm showing you right now is the quantitative stuff that would go along with this combo model. So at the second call, this is where we stand. 6-7 and then 2-4 are right there. Okay, with each other. Now, same thing happens. Now we're looking at the stretch run. The final fraction rating, which is we're just taking the final fraction and we're using our nifty little conversion to convert it to a rating instead of putting a time in here. Now we have a rating, and the best performance out of these runners based off the pace lines we chose was the 5 horse at an 86. But is that good enough to bring this horse across the wire first? So what we're going to do here is we're going to do our second analysis using just this picture that I talked about here. Okay? And if you notice, I put the 7 as my top over the 6. And you might say, well, why? We got top, top, top in all 3 categories. Okay? Well, I'm taking 2 things into consideration. Okay? I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that there may be a little bit of a pace pressure here with the 2 and the 6. which the 6 horse may have not experienced last time out, without going back and watching the replay of that race. Now, if you have the time on your hands to do that, you could simply go and watch the replay of this 6 horse last time out and see if he was dueling up front and he was still able to maintain this performance right here, based off the pace line. Again, you have to watch the right replay of the pace line that you actually chose. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to base this off of the pressure here up front and looking at the second best performance when it comes to the rest of the race. And I'm going to give the nod to the 7 here over here. 7.642 is where I went with my assessment over here. I try not to let the final rating sway me, because the third assessment now is based solely off this final rating. This is where the 6 will get his props on top. 6.742 for the third assessment. And then my fourth assessment here is simply an average of the matrix rating and the progression rating averaged out together. And as you can see here, we got a 6.247. Now, when I do my final analysis on this, I'm going to look at a consensus here. I'm going to say 2.641, 7.642, 6.745, 6.247, and I might even write them down on paper instead of doing it in my head and figure out where is the favoritism here in this particular grid. Well, I see it with the 6, I see it with the 2, and I see it with the 7, and then the 4 is in there too. So being it's only a 7-horse field, if I'm going to play this race, if I'm going to play a try, I might just take my chances and put the 6 on top, along with either the 2 or the 7, depending on which one of the two gives me the better value, over the 2, 4, 6, 7, over the 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, and leave the 5 out. And the 3 was a toss in this race. I tossed this race. If you're not a fan of leaving out 1, then you just play the all in the last leg. But that's how I'm analyzing a grid once it's completed. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to do a race on here just to show you the efficiency and the quickness that you could go and get a race done just by knowing what you're looking at and what to do with the information. So I'll be back after this pause. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the second here at Tampa Bay. The first thing I'm going to do is I have my PP generator set on for default for the options of incremental times on and fractions to display horses fractions. But what I'm going to do is for the matrix factors, I'm going to go and I'm going to take the fractions, and I want to see leaders fractions, and I don't want to see incremental times. I want to turn them off. So what now we're doing is we're looking at an actual, just a regular past performance page. All right, I'm going to do my split screen there, and we'll take a look at the grid. And I'm just going to go along and just kind of talk to myself as I'm doing this and do the math out loud and just show you how quick we can get done just the matrix side right now. And we'll do a quick analysis of the matrix side. So I look, it's a 6 furlong race. I'm pulling pace lines here in my head. I'm going to use the second back. Okay, we have that's a 90 for a target rating off of that 110. Ability rating, I'm going to go back to, looks like an 84 would be the ability. So I'm going to adjust that for the exceed there. But I'm going to first, before I do that, I'm going to do my math and get my target Briz. And that would be in 182. Now I'll adjust that down to an 84. And again, those of you that are familiar with the matrix system factors, you'll understand the language there that I'm using when I'm making my adjustments based off of exceeding ability and so on. Okay, the second race now, I have to reach pretty far back in order to get a target rating, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to use these 5.5 furlong races, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 3 points from the rating to account for the fact that it's going an extra half a furlong. So let's go at 10, 11, 12, 34, 86. I'm going to make this an 83. For the target Briz, the 83 and the 80 is a 163. And then my ability rating, I want to pull off of a true 6 furlong. So we got a 10, 11, we have an 89. That's the best one. So there we go. We're done 2 horses on the matrix end. Now we go to race the horse number 3. We got 15, 16, 17. That's an 83 target. Target Briz is a 160 when you add it to the Briz speed figure. And then we'll pull our ability from 84. It's an 84. Ability coming off of that 6 furlong call. 2 races back. And adjust it to 2 lengths behind. Okay, now we got the 4. We got 10, 11, 12. That's an 88. Target Briz, 88 and 84 is a 172. His ability rating. Now I see a 90 there. I see a 91. He'd be a 91. Okay, the 5. 9. That's a 91 target. 179 target Briz. And ability. Do I have something at or better than the 91? If not, I'm going to have to adjust. No, the best I got is this 110 on the lead. So that would be a 90. And I would just simply adjust that back to a 90. So we're not looking at an exceeder in ability. Number 6. Well, I don't want to normally I would go 2 back for a target, but I don't like that performance. And I don't want to go 3 back because I want to use that as my ability. So what we'll do is we'll go 10, 13, that's an 87. We'll take 3 off of there, being that it was a 5.5 furlong race. 84, that's a 173 when I add it here to 89. And then 10 and 4 is 14, 23, 77. Looks like we have a 77 ability, which we're going to have to make a big adjustment here for the exceed. And then finally the 7 horse. We'll go 10, 4 is 14, that's an 86. 86 and 77 is 163. And my ability rating will come from either a segment of these miles, race 15, 16, 18, 82. I'll add 5 going from the 2 turns to 1, and I'll make it an 87. So I'm done, okay? That's all my handicapping, quantitative handicapping, I should say, for the matrix side. Now, if there's time before the race, if I do this the night before like I'm going to, I will go back with fresh eyes tomorrow, and I will take a look at class droppers, moves in the race, horses that are coming out of key races or next out winners, and I may adjust my opinions accordingly. All right, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle this now to, so I can do my progression side. I'm going to toggle this to the options of fractions, display the horse's fractions, not the leader at each call. And then I'm going to go to incremental times, and I'm going to turn them on. So now what we're looking at is we're looking at this particular horse's segmented or incremental fractions from call to call. There's no longer any worry of having to look in here and seeing adjusting to lengths behind. There's no adjusting would needed there, but like over here, we would not have to adjust and add 2 for the lengths gained and so forth. These are the actual fractions, splits, fractional splits
for tomorrow. Look for
of
weather.
this particular horse. So let's take a look here at the 1. So I want to use the same, I want to pick out a good pace line, something recent, and I'll just go 2 back here at 6 furlongs. We have a 96 off that 22 and 4. We have a 96 off of the 22 and 4, and then the final rating, we're going to add them together, 24 and 3, which is a 87. Done. So this 1 horse is finished completely as far as our quantitative data goes. Okay? Number 2. We're probably going to have to use the 5.5 furlong. Obviously, because I'm not going to go all the way back here to May of last year or this year. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go 22 and 1 is a 99. We have a 92 on that 23 and 3. And then we go 12. 6 is 18. It's actually 100. Okay? And again, if you own the pace progression tutorial, you'll know exactly what I did there. You'll understand where I got that. If you don't, throw a question in the comments, and I'll do the best I can to answer it without going into long detail on how to do it. All right, the next one is 23 and 1. I'm going to go right off the last race. 23 and 1 is a 94. 23 is a 95. And the final fraction rating in that race is 84. 25 and 1. Okay, the 4. We'll go off the last race. 23 and 2 is a 93. 94. And 24 is a 90. The 5 horse, we have a 96. 97. And 12 and 11, 23 and 7, 24 and 2. It's an 88. Now again, if you're wondering where am I coming up with these ratings, I'm doing a conversion from times to ratings so that the spreadsheet can recognize and base everything out of 100. Okay, so we got 2 more to look at. We have the 6. Now the 6 horse is interesting because again, if I use the 5.5, I'll use the 5.5. So I don't like these 2 races. And again, they might say, well, that's a reason to toss the horse. So it could be, but it's also, you could be tossing a horse that might win at a price. Or come in your exotic at a price and you have them tossed. So I'm just going to base it off of the 5.5. I got a 98. Turn rating, 92. And then the last half a furlong, or actually 1.5 furlongs, 18 and 4, that's a 96. And then finally, the 7. The 7, we have a 93. Come on, work with me. There we go. 93. 92. And finally, a 90. So at this point now, my keyboard is sticking on me here. At this point now, I can open up my grid and I can do the rest of my analysis now, or all of my analysis. I'm going to go over here, paint the matrix side. We got the 90 as my target. Any close seconds, we have 88. And I'll even go as far as the 86 here for third. I won't go down to the 84. All right, ability, we have a 91. We have a 90. We have an 89. And we have an yes, no, maybe, no. I'll leave it at that. That's your call if you were doing it. Okay. Target Bridge rating, we have a 91 here. And remember, this was an exceeder. That's why he's higher here, but yet not high over here, because we adjusted his target rating down to the ability. But we leave it here for the Target Bridge. 86.5 and 86. And guys, this is what makes it fun. I mean, for me at least. I don't want to speak for everybody. I'm using the data and I'm doing my own work with my own model and the factors that I choose to use in this model. And I'm coming up with my own educated opinion on how I think the race might run. And it's so much more rewarding when your horses cross the line the way you want them to cross, and you know that you did the work, and your model and your handicap and point at you in that direction, rather than having some sort of software program. And again, I'm not knocking it if that's what you do, and you don't have the time to do the handicapping, but having a software program spitting out numbers using hundreds of different factors that you have to go and sort through to figure out, well, if I would have used this factor on top Trainer off of last out, that would have pointed me to the winner. Well, yeah, you could pretty much point to a winner anyway after the race is over. Anyway, you can find a reason a horse won. But when you have a model that's got simple factors, simple points of data that you're looking at, and you're doing what you're doing with them, you know, you live and die by what you do. That and your bankroll management, in the end, is going to speak on your behalf as far as yourself as a player. Now let's take a look at the final. We have an 89.3 here. We have an 88.3 here. We have an 86.3 here. And we have an 84.83. And now we'll analyze. I'm going to lean toward my target, even though he is my top major, but he's just going to happen to be my top. It's going to be a 5, 4, and I'm going to go with the 1. Being he's only showing up once, but it's tops and target Briz. 5, 4, 1, and then I'll go with the 7 as my 4th choice based on the matrix side of the grid. Okay? Now we'll analyze the progression here. Early we have a 99, and then we have a 98. Then we have a 96, so I'll go as far as 3 there. Okay? So again, based off the pace line that we chose, performance-wise, if all of these horses were going to run to the same as they ran in the pace line that we chose, you would look at a 2 on top at the first call, 6, potentially a length behind, and then the 1 horse potentially 3 lengths behind, because remember, these ratings equate to lengths because we use 1 length for every 1/5 of a second. Now, let's look at the performance from the first call to second call. And we have top performer here, the 5. And this is not the new adjustment to the rating, so I use a different shade. Okay, I try to keep the solid colors to the new adjustments to the rating. This is the performance. This is the performance from first call to second call, 97, 96. Notice I used the same colors, but I just changed the shade a little bit. Then we have a 95 here. We'll go green. Now, what does that do to the ratings now? It puts the 5 horse now in the lead by a potential length over the 1 horse. Okay, and then we have the 2. And we have the 6. So it looks to me like this grid is showing that the pace could break down potentially going into after the second turn and hitting the top of the stretch. So is this going to leave it open for a closer? Let's look at stretch performance. We know we had this 2. Again, that was off a 5.5 furlong race. This 2 horse seems to sustain a little bit here. But again, grain of salt, it was off of a 5.5 furlong race. Then we have a 96. Then we have the 290s. We'll make them green. And then we'll look what it does in the end, okay? Who's the model projected to win based off of this performance here? The 2 horse. Again, 5.5. That's going to be reason for me to maybe not put this horse in first when I do my analysis over here off of the picture, because I had that in my mind that this was a 5.5 furlong race that we pulled this line from. It doesn't mean he's not going to win the race, though. 86 as our second. The 81 is our third. And then a 79 here is our 4th. So let's take a look at this picture here. And again, I already talked about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lean toward this move on the turn here. Performance on the turn. And I'm going to put the 5 on top of the 2 for this second assessment. 5 on top of the 2, and then I'll lean toward the 6 and then the 1. And this is also nice because you and I could be using these same exact methods and even the same exact pace lines, but when it comes down to this part here, you may see the picture a little bit differently and come up with something a little bit different. Now, this is here set solely 2, 6, 5, 1. And then finally over here, the averages, we have a 2. We have the 5. We have the 6. Oh, I'm sorry. 2, 5, 6, and then our 4th. We got a tie here for 4th. So we have to separate them somehow. But let's just go and go 2, 5, 6. And now is when I may want to go into the PPs again and look and see if there was something qualitative that would separate that 1 and the 4 for me. Maybe it's the class level. Could be trainer. Could be a move one of the 2 horses made in the race, and so on and so forth. But just for the sake of this, I'm gonna stay with the horse that showed up most here, and I'm gonna go with the 1 as my 4th choice. Okay. So from there, all I'm doing now is I'm gonna analyze. All right. Who's getting the most acknowledgement? We got the 5 and the 2. So they might be my top plays, 2 and the 5. And over the 1, 6, 1, 2, 5, 6, over the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, if you don't like to leave one horse out, you throw the 3 into that last leg if you're playing a try. And just roll from there. And look for value for your win plays. You know, if the 2 or the 6 or the 5, one of them is showing odds that are opening your eyes a little bit, you put your win money on that horse. And again, you live and die by your plays. But later on tonight, I'm going to try to get the video done of all my selections for the rest of the races at Tampa Bay, which would be 3 through 9. And I'll throw it up here. All right? So as usual, if you have any comments, questions, throw them in the comment section. If you're interested in purchasing Pace Progression, you will get both the Pace Progression model and the Matrix System model, which is over 100 slides, the Matrix System model. And we got over 2 hours of video here in the Pace Progression for $40. And if you are a owner of the Thorough Capping Deluxe tutorial, you'll get your Pace Progression for $24. Just let me know through email at thoroughcapping@gmail.com that you own the Thorough Capping tutorial and you would like to purchase the Pace Progression model tutorial for $24. And I'll give you your code. All right? Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you soon.